Welcome back, folks, to the Lighthead Online Video Show. This episode of the show and every episode of the show since day one is brought to you by the Easy Folks. That's right. Go to KEYSTONETECH.com. That's Light Made Easy, Greg Keystone.
That's right. Check them out for all their products, their live product tour, everything you can do with that.
KeystoneTech.com. Check them out. We got a little surprise. We haven't done this in a while, but we need to introduce a guest, friend of the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. Spent many years with me over the years talking, and some of it recorded, some of it not. Folks, say hello to Peter Brown. What's happening, Peter?
Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning from Phoenix. Nice, cool Phoenix in July.
There you go. So you were texting me, and we try to keep the Lighthead show within a certain time frame, nice and tight for Greg Eric. But you were talking about the show that we did with Tom Butters about the Lighting Agora. And his, we wish Tom all the best with that new venture. And there's consultants. And then we were texting back and forth about lighting consulting and education. And it started going to a little bit of demographics, Greg. There seems to be like a lot of baby boomers, and the COVID-19 lockups seem to have accelerated the trend of baby boomers moving towards this consulting. And I wanted to ask Peter Brown, what does a consultant in the lighting industry actually do, Peter?
Probably just tries to solve problems, find problems, solve them in the realm that their expertise has given them over, pick a number, 20, 30 years of being in the lighting industry. So obviously there's a lot of people that have been in the lighting industry for 20, 30, 35, 40 years that are now looking to retire, don't really want to retire, want to have something to do. And so you have this, plethora of folks out there looking for problems to solve, looking for, venues to provide some value. And it's an interesting time.
I like creating problems that I know how to solve.
There's too much of that going around, buddy.
Oh, man. I think that's the business model of the pharmaceutical companies, isn't it?
Yep.
So, Greg, we've done some consulting, and we seem to keep it really brief, and we limit it to 1 hour max. We only consult for a person for 1 hour max. It's called the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. What do you think of all this, Greg?
Yeah, I think a number of factors come into it, but a lot of people are reevaluating what they're doing now, and positions have changed for people. And naturally, someone with the background and experience of a lot of these people, why not get into consulting? There are a lot of problems in lighting. There are a lot of things to do. But one thing you pointed out, Peter, in this is you said 90% of people still feel that we need better educated buyers. Is kind of whatever the percentage is, but majority think it's better educated buyers instead of better educated sellers. And I want to get your feedback on that, and then I'll share mine a little too.
So primarily what I've been involved in is the evolution, if you will, of controls. Back in the day, controls were extremely simple. With LED and digital and everything else, they've become extremely complex. And so there is a sense that all that's needed to increase the adoption of advanced controls is just, hey, we just need to educate the end user on better features and benefits. And really what needs to be done is the folks trying to sell and promote it need to understand how the buyers buy anything technology, disruptive technology, whatever you want to call it. And it's a very different game. There's information out there and there's methodology and whatever, but there seems to be a disconnect between understanding, hey, we just need to educate people, and looking at themselves and saying, we're not getting this right. There's not the adoption we thought there was going to be, and there's not this looking back and saying, what are we doing wrong?
I would agree. And just from my standpoint as someone who's out there selling, is I think as a whole, to educate people better, you need to slow it down. in the lighting industry, when you're out there, and including myself, I'm as guilty as anyone. We're trying to sell it fast. It's a lot of fast moving sales and churning and getting product out and doing that. But to really educate people and to get them to do the right thing, that for the long run, the process needs to slow down. And I don't know how we do that, Mike. Maybe you have the trick, but to really educate people 100% of the way, give
Well,
them all
first
the,
of all,
the best options. You can do that.
most lighting people don't have a clue what they're talking about, including me. And I've talked to I would say that I don't know if education is the right word, but I'm very informed about where, and so are you, Greg, on this journey we've been on where different things are at. And to me, it's very confusing. And so when I see, people in the field selling human-centric lighting, for example, to people, that's a dicey thing to do at this point. Not that Dr. Mark Ray and Dr. Mary Ferrer and all these people aren't doing great work, and there isn't things that we can do to improve. But I'm not so sure where the marketing ends and where the actual human health benefits start, right? And I think that's where I don't know if consultants is the right word, but we don't want to end up in a situation like I'll give you brought up the example of occupancy controls or lighting controls, sensors, and so on. Most the average person not in the lighting industry would still be wowed by a properly commissioned and installed analog lighting control system. Like they would be blown away if someone came along just with knowledge of how passive infrared and ultrasonic worked and installed controls in every office in their building or every room in their home and properly commissioned them so that when someone was in the room, the lights were on, and when they left, they went off. I mean, consumers, we just did a video here at Lighting Solutions, Greg, where we said, this is an occupancy sensor. It turns off lights when nobody's in the room. It turns them on when someone comes. Like the basics of it. So I think the industry is way further ahead of where its customers are at. And I think your point, Peter, where you said, we got to educate the buyers or inform the buyers or, get the buyers to understand these benefits is very important because people are talking about DALI has merged with Bluetooth and this sort of stuff. And the average person who's maintaining a building has no idea that a lighting ballast is a computer. They have no idea, Peter.
We talked a little bit in the past about this, but I just want to reference this. I think everybody who sells anything that's digital, that's disruptive, regardless of the industry, should read a book called Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore. He wrote it in 1991. It was basically what transpired in the 1980s because of software and hardware. And basically, he says in there that 85% of the buyers don't buy on features and benefits. They buy on payback, ROI, buzz in the industry. What are my competitors doing? Nothing to do with the technology whatsoever. Their first filter is financial. And, we've been selling lighting for a long time, and it's a financial transaction that happens to involve lighting for the most part. And so it still applies to this. And understanding the dynamic of how people buy disruptive technology is absolutely foundational to really understand what the heck is going on out there. Because nothing happens until somebody buys something. You can sell and sell all you want, but until somebody buys something, so that is so fundamental. And I would say still today, 80% of the people I talk to in the lighting industry have never heard of that book. Never heard of it.
Well, I think, you're talking about pitching, right? So you're out there pitching. I'm very careful when I'm talking to someone about their lighting to listen to what it is that they want to buy. And they never tell me that they want to have their phone connected to the odd time. Actually, I should say never. But there is sometimes you'll hear, especially homeowners specifically, but rarely do you hear somebody in a commercial facility, Greg, industrial facility, asking for more alerts on their phone. Have you ever encountered that?
No, I've not.
Yeah.
Make it easy.
Yeah. So I don't know what the and like you take something like disruptive. It's very very difficult to disrupt critical infrastructure. Like critical infrastructure is not really susceptible to disruption. And if it is, usually disaster ensues, like the outdoor lighting situation we find ourselves in now with, burned out LEDs all over the place, turning purple, light glare bombs, way too high light levels, causing all manner of problems in rivers and lakes and streams and all sorts of things. So when you disrupt critical infrastructure, you need to be very careful. I don't know what when it comes to consultants or educating buyers. I think the lighting industry needs to listen more than educate. I think we need to listen to what the customers actually want. And with the DLC and the utilities incenting things, that's not listening to the customer. That's like, running an agenda. We want to save energy. We want to deploy this technology. We have we want our institution to continue to exist. We're going to push utilities towards energy efficiency. A lot of this sort of stuff is cooked up, and they're not delivering true value. I think the lighting industry, if the consultants were out there, would go and find out what it is that customers actually want to buy. What do you think about that, Greg? And we'll finish with Peter.
I totally agree. Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's what we're out selling every day. And when you take some of this knowledge that we've learned and from trade shows or from our podcast or whatever it might be, you bring it out to the field, and half of them are like, I don't care. This is what I want. Do this. And so that's the hard part about taking this knowledge and this or the ability that LED lighting can have, and then in turn trying to sell it to the end user to make sense for them. So help us out, Peter.
A great example of that is the consequence of somebody not listening is the facility director talking to the project manager who's installing an advanced lighting control system in this campus. And the facility director says, all I want you to do is show me how to unwire this when it fails so I can put in an on-off switch. So, somebody said, I know we're doing this comprehensive energy thing and whatever, and we got to do all this and blah, 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 but this is all I want to know.
You know what's hilarious about that? So there was a time, I don't know, 2005 or whatever to 2011, I made a big rush on doing occupancy sensors in parking garages. Became very familiar with all the municipal codes and did a bunch of installs. We were using data loggers and all this sort of stuff. But you know what we needed to do on every single system? We needed to have an override switch. We installed an override switch, which turned the sensors off and turned all the lights in the garage on. Because if somebody smashed a sensor or something, it would de-energize a whole part of the garage. Or if a relay failed in the low voltage sensors, it would de-energize a whole bunch of lights because everything fails to off. And so you'd have that in a box. With a lock on it, you'd have an override switch. Yeah, the override switch is by the door. Yeah, okay, go turn it on. And I think there's a lesson in that, Peter. And sometimes lighting is critical infrastructure, and you don't want to monkey around. You want to keep it easy. That's right, folks. You want to keep it easy, you got to go to KeystoneTech.com. That's KeystoneTech.com. That's Light Made Easy. Check them out, our friends at Keystone. Thank you for listening.